Welcome back to the Grateful Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Wagoner, and today I had the real pleasure of interviewing Dan Millman. Dan's an 18-time author, former world champion athlete, and former Stanford gymnastics coach. His first book, The Way the Peaceful Warrior, has transformed millions of lives across the world, one of which being my own. This book is one of the most transformative books in my journey, as it has been for so many people. And one of the most special things about this interview is that at 18 years old, I'm the age that Dan was at the start of his peaceful warrior journey. So we got to fill the gap between our ages, as Dan is in his late 70s, even though you could never tell by looking at him. And this interview was so special because we really get to understand Dan's perspective more, how it's shifted over time, the different journeys he's gone on since his journey with Socrates, who was his mentor in the first book. And I'm just so grateful that we were able to have this time, as this interview has been months in the making. So without further ado, Dan Millman, welcome to the Grateful Podcast.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate the invitation. I'm grateful, you might say.
I'm super grateful to have you on because although I've talked to many people that have impacted my life, I always find it very special when someone's impacted my life the way you have. The way the Peaceful Warrior has profoundly impacted how I approach my life on a day-to-day basis. And I just think that that's going to make this conversation all that much more special.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. I'm glad my work has touched your life and maybe through you, the lives of others.
I think that the thing that most touched me about it, and the thing I keep with me on a daily basis, and I've just been so excited to talk to you about, is the idea where Socrates said you can be happy and have no reason for it. You know, you can be happy now, because if you wait for a reason to be happy, you never will be. And that's been something I've really been embodying in my life, I think for a long time, but especially recently in trying to bring onto the podcast, just this idea that you don't need a reason to feel joy in your life. When did you truly start to feel this? And if you can, try to describe that feeling of joy without a reason for it.
Well, you've raised an important question that may take a little bit of time to answer in full context. First of all, it's not about feeling joy, because one of the central tenets of what I've been teaching for these past recent years, as a result of the fourth mentor who I went through a 20-year initiation or period of preparation with four radically different mentors who gave me keys to unlock access to, say, the perennial wisdom. And this fourth mentor, and I describe all this in my final culminating book, Peaceful Heart, Warrior Spirit, the true story of my spiritual quest. And what I can say is he tuned me back to reality in terms of bringing me back to earth, how things actually work. You see, we have no direct control over what thoughts just pop into our awareness. I'm not talking about the ability to solve math problems, write poetry, and so on. We have the intellect, of course, and our mind can do that. But in terms of the discursive mind, thoughts that just arise, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. We don't have a spam filter. So we can't just stop certain thoughts or hold on to a thought indefinitely. They just arise and change and pass. Very similar to the emotions. Emotions pass through us like the weather. They change all the time. We feel this, then we feel that. And we can't will ourselves to feel differently from the way we do in any given moment. So, for example, I don't always, have many of us, we've been given a gift, we didn't particularly feel grateful, but we could say thank you. And that brings up the key here, is we have more control over our behavior, what we actually do, moment to moment. If I were to ask you to touch the tip of your nose and you were willing to go along with it, you would find your arm rising and touching the tip of your nose. Unless we're disabled physically, which means we don't have that ability, we can choose how we move our mouth, how we speak, and our body. So Here's the thing. If there were a terrible storm outside where you're living right now, or I'm living, um, lots of destruction, let's say, in this storm. Would it be your responsibility? Would it be my responsibility? No, because we don't have control over the weather. If we did, then if we were like Storm on X-Men, then we could control the weather and we'd have some responsibility. So I hope we can agree that we are responsible for what we have control over and
Mhm.
not responsible for what we can't control by our will. We can influence a lot of things. We can make an effort to influence other people, to influence our emotions, to influence uh, thoughts, and so on. But influence means we make an effort, and it may or may not work. Like many actors try to influence their performance by drawing upon their anger or sorrow in the past, that sort of thing. But that's influence. But control means you will it to happen, it happens. And so I'm suggesting that we have far less responsibility for what emotions pass through us or what thoughts arise in our awareness and pop into our head than we do over our actions because we have more control over our actions. And a problem with many young people today, many teenagers, when their minds start getting busy and their emotions are in turmoil, is they feel too responsible for what they're feeling and not responsible enough for what they actually do. So,
Interesting.
so
Hmm.
in the sense, I'm letting people off the hook. I'm saying you have no responsibility for any thought that's ever popped into your head or any feeling you've ever had. But we are responsible for what we do. In fact, our lives have been shaped more than anything else by what we've done over time. We've made decisions through our actions. That's when we know we've made a decision, when we act, not when we try to figure it out in our heads. So this is kind of a new idea to many people because they read many books on how to feel this and how to feel that, and more empowered, and do NLP techniques to access a different state of being and all that stuff. Yeah, that's all abstract stuff. But the sage, the man I call the sage, who pointed these things out, and it made a lot of sense to me. Um, our lives are shaped by what we do over time, and in fact, I might add that, um, so the point is, I can't control whether I feel grateful, but I can behave with gratitude. I can say thank you. I can write down the blessings of my life. And in fact, um, Jack, I made, um, I created a 4-minute peaceful warrior meditation um, in response to a talk that a Zen master gave when my daughters, who are now out of college, when they were in high school, he came to their school. And after the his talk, which I really liked, I asked him, did he have a couple of tips for going deep into meditation? And he said two things. He said, first, you must have good posture,
Hmm.
not leaning forward into the future or backward into the past, but stable, vertical in this present moment. Great. And then he said, you must die. And clearly, he wasn't referring to physical death. He was referring to some kind of dying to our attachments so we can go deeper in the meditation. And that started me thinking. And I said, what happens when we die? Now, I don't know what happens after we die. There are people who say they do. They've had near death experiences and experiences of light and all that stuff. But no one really knows because we haven't reported back from
Hmm.
actual death. But we do know this. We do know that the body is decomposed. We do know that we have to give up the things of life. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this, that this is the basis of that 4-minute meditation. It involves like the process of dying, a rehearsal. Now, to the young, death is just a distant rumor. Uh, yeah, I know that, but it's a reality of life. It gives meaning to life that our time is finite. The point is, I sometimes ask groups, like, what would you feel like if you woke up tomorrow morning and could fly, literally soar in the air like Superman, Superwoman, whatever? Um, and many people go, I'd feel ecstatic, I'd feel liberated, I'd feel happy, I'd feel free, and so on. But I say, what do you think you'd feel a month after that or a year after that? Like, man, it's cold up here. They didn't tell me it would be so cold up in the air. And oh, now everybody else is flying. There go the friendly skies. And um, I wish I could fly faster because I'm late to work. The point is, we would end up taking it for granted the same way we do um, the ability to see or hear or sense or the things we get to play with, material goods in life. So this meditation takes us through the process, a willingness to surrender the things of life when we die. It's like a rehearsal. And it reduces the fear of death for sure. But the reason I teach this meditation, and it's relevant to this podcast, is I've never found a way, a better way to appreciate our daily lives, to be grateful for that, a sense of this narrow sliver of chance that allows us to live a human life, whether we have our ups and downs and difficulties and pains and illness, but we still are alive as human beings and aware. And it's so easy to take that for granted. So that
Yeah.
is one of the most profound exercises we can do in 4 minutes a day, which I do every day since its inception, probably about 15, 18 years ago. I've been doing it every day. And it reminds me of the wonders of everyday life. So that's a fundamental element in terms of gratitude, even though it doesn't make me necessarily feel grateful every time I do it. Um, because many of us, we're looking for a way to feel good more of the time and feel bad less of the time.
Yeah.
Even if we say, I'm interested in enlightenment, personal development, but deep down, we just like to feel better. And unfortunately, feelings change all the time. So to me, gratitude is an art. When the doorman opens the door for us in our building here in Brooklyn, New York, uh, I always say, thank you. Uh, I hold the door for other people as well when I'm going to the Y to work out. Um, so I think we can increase that sense of gratitude, that appreciation for life. But it doesn't always impact how we feel in any given moment.
Yeah. Man, you know, I think it's so powerful that right now I'm the same age that you were when the book started, right? And one of the things you said there, more at the beginning, that I'm really interested in diving into is that we are less responsible for our feelings than we may think, and we're more responsible for our actions. And that is one of the things that young people especially get wrong about life, right? There's a lot of talk right now about my generation in particular being victims, the victim mindset, right? And when we think about being a victim, it's about taking less responsibility than you have. But what I hear you saying is that it's yes, they might be take people that are victims, maybe taking less responsibility for their actions, but in a sense, they're more responsible because they're trying to be responsible for their feelings, which they have no control over. And it's a sad truth because they're trying so hard to change something, but that effort is futile. And when you think of exhaustion, people that put effort into a place where they make progress often feel fulfilled, but people that put effort into places where they're stagnant, like the myth of Sisyphus, right? That is despair. That is when you feel lost in this world. And uh, I think I'm hypothesizing here because I didn't go through your life, but the beauty of what Socrates was able to do for you is allow you to shift that effort because you were a very ambitious person. You were successful in a lot of things, but you were able to shift that effort into the thing that finally brought you the feeling that you wanted, because although you can't control a feeling, you can control your actions, and you were able to shift that energy to the actions that ended up making you more fulfilled. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you are. Absolutely. And that's really the key. Now, every generation has had their different kinds of adversity. Um, Sometimes we appreciate this because, I sometimes ask people, raise your hand, when I'm speaking to an audience, raise your hand if you've experienced physical, emotional, or mental pain in your life, dissatisfaction, disappointment. Well, all the hands go up, of course. Yeah, sure. And I say, well, yes, that may be true, and we don't have to pretend to like adversity or a difficulty when it arises, or a challenge. But um, we can appreciate that for the past difficulties we've faced, we're a little bit stronger now, maybe a little bit wiser, in the sense of climbing out of a deep, dark hole can give us the strength to climb mountains. So I think we can keep that thread of attention. And every generation, I mean, my parents went through World War II, a very difficult time.
Mhm.
Generations before that were immigrants in a new country, didn't speak the language, started out like many immigrants today, working very hard so their children could live better lives and their grandchildren could live better lives. Um, and the new generation, your generation, I see it. It's a difficult time with AI and all the changes happening, and the politics, um, and the job situations. Uh, you may be working at a job that hasn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
The uncertainty. So those are definite challenges. But yes, when someone brings kind of a victim awareness, they say, "Well, yeah, but I'm really suffering because." Well, yes, suffering is very difficult, and I have great compassion for the challenges young people have today. Um, but if life is like a movie, um, and some of us feel like bit players, like extras, and everybody else is the director, uh,
Mhm.
the uh, uh, the casting director. They're making choices, and all we can do is follow because we're extras in the film. But I'm here to remind people that if you don't like the cast of characters, become the casting director and cast a new set of characters in your life. If you don't like the
Mm.
script, become a screenwriter. Write a new script. Uh, you can become the star of your film, the lead actor, um, rather than just an extra.
Yes.
Y- you know, uh,
As many of you know, gratitude has transformed my entire life. I went from feeling like I wasn't enough while trying to achieve so much to feeling like the person who has already achieved all of that. And it's not only manifested my life in terms of joy, but it's manifested so many results and so much amazingness outside of me in my life as well. And that's why I recently wrote From Burnt Out to Grateful. I wrote down my entire gratitude protocol, everything I've done to get from where I was feeling stuck and burnt out at 15, 16 years old to where I am now about to turn 19. So joyful with this podcast, doing great in school, traveling the world. And I really, really am just so excited and proud of the work that I did here because I know the power it has to transform your life if you put these practices into your life, if you actually use them and take the action. So there's a link in the description From Burnt Out to Grateful. You can get the 25-page ebook for just $10. No pressure here. It's again just a way that you can help support the podcast and also learn some stuff for yourself and continue to improve your life.
there was a woman who spoke to me after that. She heard that little talk, and her husband said, "Oh, why aren't you dressed? We're going out to dinner tonight." And she said, "Well, you enjoy these people. I don't really that much. So why don't you go? Have a good time. But I'm going to stay home and do something else." He said, "No, no, we have to go." She said, "No, I just rewrote the script."
Nice. I love that.
Yeah, it's empowering to remember that we can do that in our lives. We can make different choices. Um, and by the way, I wish I could tell you the royal road to success. There will be many people who can do that, but I can't because I recognize that we can't control the outcomes in our lives. We can't control whether we sink a putt every time or make a basket or find love or success. But by making a good effort, a conscious effort over time, we vastly increase the odds um, because we can control our efforts. And
Yes.
so by making an effort over time, we can increase the odds of getting our desired outcome. Um, was it, I think Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, said, you make 0% of the shots you don't take. So you got
Exactly.
to take the shot. Um, Effort over time. It's not too sexy or spiritual, but that's the horse I'm betting on. Effort over time. That's how I've accomplished things. Effort over time. And it has helped. So, yes, and you can say, but yes, but how about the inner blocks? Do you have to, clean up your inner life and clean your mind and clear it and do all that inner stuff? Yes and no. Yes and no. I got a scene into the Peaceful Warrior movie. The book was adapted to film in 2006. Nick Nolte playing the old guy Socrates.
Hmm.
Um, I got the scene in. I suggested it to the director, and he put it in a couple weeks before shooting. Um, the story is I was doing a lot of work on myself. Uh, I was doing self-observation, various kinds of meditation, self-massage, a Mongolian warrior massage to clear fear-produced tensions from the body, and so on. A lot of work on myself. And Socrates and I were walking down Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, California, during my college years, and uh, we saw a poster on the wall about the Vietnam War. And then we saw a poster on starving children and oppressed peoples around the world. And I said, Socrates, I'm doing all this navel gazing. I'm doing all this work on myself. I feel kind of selfish. Um, and shouldn't I be more activist? Like some of my teammates are marching against the war and so on. And he just stopped and said, take a swing at me. And I went, what? Did you hear what I was just saying to you? He said, come on, I'll give you $5 if you can slap me on the cheek. So I started bobbing and weaving, and then I took a swing at him, and I found myself on the ground rather quickly in a painful wrist lock. And as he helped me to my feet, he said, you notice a little leverage can be very effective, Dan? And I said, yes, Sock, I noticed, shaking out my wrist. He said, well, you want to help people? Sure, do what your heart tells you. But don't neglect the work on yourself so you can develop the clarity to know how to exert the right leverage at the right place at the right time. I never forgot that because it's not about either or. It's not about doing inner work or being an activist. It's about both together, because one can help you be more effective in the world. So that's why I believe in that sense of inner work to do the clearing, whether it's yoga, Pilates, exercise routine. It comes down to this. People come to me for a consultation and they say, Dan, I have an emotional problem. I have a spiritual problem. And I ask 3 questions nonetheless. I say, are you doing regular, moderate exercise almost every day? 2, are you eating a balanced, nutritious diet for yourself? And 3, are you getting enough rest? Because if you do that, that's the holy trinity of health. There are a lot of gourmet, ideas and how much water you drink and so on, and whether you take supplements or not, all those kind of things. But that's the foundation. Regular exercise, a nutritious diet, and enough rest. That provides a foundation where you can solve those emotional, spiritual problems, dilemmas about career and school and everything else. So those things are quite important.
Yeah. Yeah. They're They're the simple things or the unsexy things, so people don't like to talk about them very much. They like to look for the cool solution, you know? Like, they wanna find the thing that makes them stand out, the unique thing, but if you don't have the base, you can't build the building. It's simple. It's an old saying, it's common knowledge, but the boring stuff is hard to work on sometimes.
Yes.
I've heard you say before how for a while you thought that you were being selfish by working on yourself because maybe you didn't use those exact words, but you realized that you wanted to help more people. And by working on yourself through constant self improvement, it was one person you were helping. Now, that journey of you growing as a person is something that's helped millions and millions of people across the world. I've been curious ever since I read your story. How does it feel to have your personal journey and your story be the thing that's inspired so many people to go on parallel journeys?
Well, it's gratifying. Um, yeah, and you've done your homework obviously in preparation for this conversation. Um, I do say I was very much into self-improvement, martial arts, sleight of hand, acrobatics of one kind or another. I did speed reading and memory courses and learned ventriloquism. I did all kinds of things. I
Can you do
loved
some
learning.
ventriloquism for us right now?
Well,
You don't have to.
I don't know. No, not really.
It's so impressive to me.
Um, but I learned a lot because I love learning and I learned how to learn. That was a foundational kind of activity. But that's, as you point out, that's when I realized no matter how much I improve myself, only one person benefited. But if I could help improve the lives of other people, that made my life more exciting. Now, not everybody has got that calling. Most of us here just want to be happy and live the good life, whatever that means to us. That's fine, no problem. But I happen to be called to that idea of trying to influence the lives of others. However, I had no idea at the time how I might do that. I hadn't even
Yeah,
thought about writing a book at that point. So it was only later that this book started taking shape after I'd worked with the first two of the four mentors who really influenced my life and work. And the other two, the later two, influenced all the writings that followed because they influenced me and shaped my life. So it's funny. I'm unable, literally unable, to take any credit. I don't have a sense of puffed upness or I've accomplished so much. I don't have that. I'm just hardwired to do what I do. And that's what any of us do. We're hardwired a certain way. We don't know what that will be. When I was your age, I had no clue to what I'd be actually doing in the rest of my life. And that's okay because it takes time to develop self-knowledge. Self-knowledge enables us to make wiser decisions in our lives appropriate to us. You see, as you know, I think already, one of the central tenets of this approach to living, I call the Peaceful Warrior's Way, is that there's no best book, no best teacher, no best religion, no best path, no best system of diet or exercise. There's only the best for each of us at a given time of our life. So life's an experiment. We have to find out what works best for us. Until we gain that self-knowledge, we might make the right decision for the wrong person, the one we thought we were, our persona, the impression we want to make on the world. But to really know ourselves in terms of what are my talents? What am I good at and not good at? What are my interests?
hmm
Rather than what do I think I should do or someone else thinks I should do? But what am I actually interested in? And the third is, what are my values? And that has to be tested in the world. So it can take 10 years after college
yeah.
graduation to really develop that perspective on oneself. And perspective is the better part of wisdom.
And it also shifts over time. I mean, my interests as just a young man have shifted drastically in the past 4 years. I mean, like if you asked me as a 12-year-old, I saw no future besides baseball for myself. And now I still enjoy baseball, but it plays a much smaller role in my life. I'm no longer an athlete, but I'm grateful for the sport and what I learned through it. But I think something you said there was you had this purpose, right? You had this, I want to impact other people. You had no idea of the how. And a lot of stress, personally, a lot of my stress comes from trying so hard to figure out the how. But then the other thing you said there is that you can't take credit for it because a lot of things, when you're living in alignment, come to you. And it's not luck, it's you're looking for it and you're living in alignment. You're working on the things that you're good at, right? And I think that a lot of that comes when you let go of trying so hard to figure out the how. That's the thing I'm working with myself the most on right now because I know what I want this podcast to be. I know the impact I want to have on the world, but the how it is very difficult. You just have to trust that it'll come. Did you have that trust? Did you think, oh, I know this will happen. I just have to wait a little bit and keep doing what I'm doing? Or were you stressed out about the same things?
When my leg was shattered in about 40 pieces in the motorcycle accident depicted in the book and in the movie, I had no idea whether I would be able to return to gymnastics. So it was more like, let's just do the work and see what happens. And that's pretty much how I've lived my life. Just follow my heart, and see what happens.
Yeah.
I,
The biggest hindrance toward me making progress to my goals is my inability to monotask. When I'm doing something and I'm not making progress on it, I'll instantly switch to another thing. And then I don't make progress on that and I switch to another, perpetuating this cycle. And on top of this, I've had some bad brain fog due to some concussions I've had in the past. But in the past week, this has all changed because this amazing company, Magic Mind, sent me 15 of these mental performance shots they have. And they've made such a big difference. I've had one each of the past 7 days, and it's really made me be able to finish tasks before I move on to the next. I have concentration that lasts longer because of the caffeine that doesn't just hit you all at once, but it actually hits you continuously over a 4-hour time period. It's made such a difference in my productivity, and I'd love for you guys to get to try it out. So if you use Wagoner 20, the code Wagoner 20 at checkout, it'll be in the description as well. You can get 20% off these shots and 48% off a bundle of 30 of them. I really recommend it. I'm not just trying to sell this to you guys. It's made a real impact in my life. Yeah, I actually have a concussion right now, and it's been really helpful in helping me get a lot done with this podcast and studying for school. So if you want to check it out, go use the link in the description.
See, I know we need a map. It's nice to have a map of a journey
Hmm.
and to see where our end point is. But, well, I've written a lot about life purpose. There one book
Yes.
called The Life You Were Born to Live, another, The Four Purposes of Life. Um, and, in the movie, when Socrates leads Dan up this big hill, up a hike up the hill, Dan has a revelation, the character in the movie. And he says, Soc, I just realized it's not um, the destination that makes us happy, it's the journey. Well, there was some wisdom in that because most of our lives are spent on the journey, not reaching the destination. But without a destination in mind, there is no journey. We just wander around. From our point A, we need a point B. Each of us, every human being is a goal, is a hardwired goal seeker. My little granddaughter, when she was crawling across the floor, she wasn't doing it to get a workout. She was doing it because she wanted that shiny toy her brother was playing with.
Hmm.
So the point is, even that young, we want things, we move toward them. So there's nothing wrong with that in any way. Um, in fact, there was a wise Japanese psychiatrist named Shoma Morita who once said, um, to live wisely and well, there are three guidelines. First, accept your thoughts and feelings as natural to you in the moment. In other words, whether they're positive or negative, whether you're motivated or not, whether you're full of doubt, just accept all that as natural to you in the moment, as you might in meditation. You don't have to fix them, flee from them, obey them, just notice them. The second thing is, what is your purpose? What is your goal? Where are you going? What do you want? And the third purpose is do whatever needs to be done in line with your purpose. You don't have to feel motivated. How many of us have taken out the trash or, done our schoolwork, whether we were really feeling motivated or not? Muhammad Ali, great, he once said, to be a champion takes will and skill, but of the two, will is the most important.
Hmm.
So it's not about waiting for willpower to descend upon us. It's just doing what needs to be done in line with our purpose. And the most important purpose is the one right in front of us. I know my purpose right now, sharing with you. You know your purpose. But
Yeah.
what our cosmic ultimate purpose is, who knows? We'll see how it turns out.
So your purpose can be as simple as completing the task in front of you, as being
Yes,
present in the moment.
exactly.
I've also thought a lot about the entire idea of presence and being here and now. That is so the book and the movie are so well known for. And when it was written, first published in 1980, I think that presence had a very different. I'm not sure. I wasn't alive in 1980. It would still be a while until I was alive. But I think nowadays presence has a lot around it because of all the distractions that have been implemented in life. How much more important is it for people to build in practices into their life to try to stay present now that there are so many more things trying to take your attention away?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I have a different take. Everyone knows it's good to live in the present moment. We've all heard that. Ram Dass wrote "Be Here Now," the classic work, and Tolle wrote "Power of Now." And I mentioned obviously the present moment in my work as well. Um, but here's the thing: many people misunderstand it because people write me on Instagram or email through our office and so on, and they say, "Dan, can you teach me?" or "How do I learn to live in the present moment?" Well, there's a little humor innate in that question because the body always lives in the present moment. Our bodies can't go to the past or future. They're always now. It's the mind, our attention that flits from what we call the past. Oh, I wish I hadn't said that at that, when I talked to that person, whatever. We call the past, but it's really just a function of memory. And or we talk about the future, which never occurs. It's always the future, but we call it imagination. Now, memory and imagination are great human gifts. We can plan our day, we can imagine things, what the future might be like. Um, and the memory can be a very useful tool as well. But we don't want to mistake them for reality. Because you can say, well, I know the past is real, Dan, because here's a photograph on my phone of my last birthday party, which was a couple of weeks ago or months ago. And what's all that's actually happening when you're showing me that image is you are showing me in this present moment an image that reminds you of a memory of the past. So all we have to do is start to realize that this is our moment of power. What is in front of us is our moment of sanity. You want to quiet the mind? Just focus on the present moment. For example, if we were together now and I took out my keys and I threw them to you and said, "Catch, Jack," when you're reaching for those keys, you'd have a cat-like awareness, just reaching for the keys to grab them out of the air. You wouldn't be thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow or what you did yesterday. You'd be just pure awareness. In the present moment, it's just pure awareness, which is why people like to throw flying discs, frisbees. It's why people like to play musical instruments that pulls us back into the present, which is peaceful. With all the chaos of the world going on around us in the daily news, when we're active, when we're doing something, when we're absorbed in it, then we are at peace. And that's a blessing. So most of us, though, live our lives with our attention in the past. Our attention goes to the future, then back to the past. And those are the complications. Barbara Rasp, it's one of my favorite quotations. She wrote, um, the lesson is simple. The student is complicated. That's true for all of us.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like to help simplify people's lives. Focus on what you do because you have more control over that, and focus on what's in front of you. Um, because there's actually no reality, objective reality to the present moment. If I say, if I try to capture the present moment and I go, now, from the time I started going to the time I said ow, a million nanoseconds had passed. Which nanosecond was the present? You can't really grasp it. So teachers like myself just remind us to handle what's in front of you. Don't worry too much about the future, about the past, which both in a sense out of our control. Um, but I don't ask people. I don't suggest people aim for success in their life. I recommend they aim for excellence in the moment because the quality of our moments become the quality of our lives. And excellence is under our control. We can bring a quality of attention and movement and breathing to each moment. Um, that's it. And
yeah.
that will help us be successful. By the way, I define success not reaching the top of the mountain, but in every step along the way. I define success as making progress toward a meaningful goal. To me, that's a successful life.
I love that. I resonate with that so deeply. I want to jump onto something you said there about like people having activity to bring them peace. Are you familiar with flow state?
Oh, yes, sure. Cheek means
Yeah,
I
of
don't know
course.
how to pronounce his name, but
Yeah.
yes, I am. It was a lovely book.
In The Rise of Superman, which is another book on the subject, it's I forget who the author is, but it's probably the second most prominent book on the subject of flow state, and it's talked about how flow state is achieved at 103% of your maximum capacity. So you have to be pushing yourself, but you could also be saying that it can be argued that flow state is the objective optimal state, right? When you're fully present, when you feel the most happiness and joy. And the interesting takeaway I have from that is that if you want to feel the most joy and you want to feel the most present, it's not a break you need. It's a meaningful push. It's pushing your limits just a little bit in that progress that you get in that moment, and that's when you can feel what you've been craving.
Yeah, yeah. A friend of mine's a strength coach, and he says you're doing all the reps just for the last one. That's
Yeah,
where the strength grows. So in a way, I guess you could say that. I don't know about 103% of your maximum effort. I don't know. I have no comment on that, but I do know that by I mean, anybody who wants to be in the flow state, just take an object, a piece of fruit, a ball, whatever, throw it in the air, and then catch it. And in a moment, you're in the flow state. Um, again, do an action that brings us back to the present moment. If we daydream, well, we'll probably drop the ball or drop the object. So it's not anything mystical or super difficult. It's just being absorbed in the moment with what we're doing. Um, yeah, so that it's not a out there thing to aspire to. We
right.
can access it every day.
Yeah, I do think that in literature and the way it's often discussed in the circles it's discussed in, it can make it seem like some faraway thing that's hard to achieve. But everyone achieves it on a daily basis.
Right, right.
Yeah.
We do. We just
Um,
don't notice it all the time. We go,
exactly.
"What was
Yeah.
that?" Yeah,
Yeah. And that's why training awareness is so important. And I think at least personally, my goal with meditation is to train my awareness of what I'm thinking, of what I'm doing, so that I can control my life in the way that I want to.
Yeah, meditation is a useful practice. People go, but when I meditate, I am just in my beingness. I am not doing anything. Yes, you are. You're definitely doing something. Sitting
Yeah.
still, willing yourself to sit still and just breathe and notice whatever objects come and pass, or whether you're focusing on a mantra or whatever you do in your method of meditation. It's a funny story, true story. When I was a new coach at Stanford University in California, I was really excited about the first competition. We'd set up the gym, and Jack Beckner, who was an Olympian, an Olympic coach, he came up to bring his team from University of Southern California up to Stanford for a dual meet. And I had a reputation by then, based on some things I'd written in a magazine, um, as being a little bit an outlier, a little bit like a Zen weirdo type,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Jack kind of got close to me and whispered, "Dan, I heard a rumor that you have your gymnasts meditate before competitions." And I went, "Oh no, Jack, I'd never do that. I have them meditate during competitions."
I love that answer. Yeah, because meditation's meant to be applied. It's not meant to be something that stays on your meditation pillow or your bed or your chair, wherever you do it. It's to be present and take that throughout your day or in the
Exactly.
places that matter, such as the competition. That's a amazing answer.
Exactly. Yeah, we eventually have to open up our eyes. It's like people who do yoga classes, when they roll up their mats, they think yoga is done. But no, the class isn't over, not throughout the rest of their day. They're practicing yoga. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe not the asanas, but the mindfulness. By the way, speaking of mindfulness, it's become a thing. Oh, I practice mindfulness, but like a one-stop spiritual shopping. But really, mindfulness simply means paying attention to the present moment, whatever's going on, without judgments. And if we're sitting still and seeing inner content, emotions, passing thoughts, and so on, then we call it mindfulness meditation. But more important than that, because we spend most of our day moving around, is being mindful in everyday life. How we walk, how we breathe. Um, I'm still refining my breath practices. Just breathing, noticing when I hold the breath unintentionally, instead of just breathing throughout the day like a pendulum, smoothly and easily. Um, and being aware of that. That can be a lifetime practice. By the way, you mentioned stress. Earlier, you
Yes.
brought it up. I'd like to provide you and your listeners with an antidote to stress.
I would love to hear it.
All right. Well, the one, first of all, let me start by saying one way to not have any stress at all is to not care about anything. But that is probably a state that is aspirational rather than realistic, because we do
Mhm.
care about our lives, about our loved
Yeah.
ones, and so on. So stress is part of life. We feel stress in different situations for different people. Some people are stressed out trying to play a sport, whereas they're very at home and relaxed at a party, a social gathering. Other people, it's just the opposite.
Mhm.
So um, two people are on a roller coaster and they're both going over the top in the first big dive, and they're both screaming, but one is screaming with delight and the other with terror,
Yes.
depending on their thoughts, their mindset about that experience. One is, oh, this is great, and the other is, I'm going to die. So the point is, stresses are different for different people, but it's actually stress is an idea, it's an abstraction. Maybe it relates to a feeling of pressure on our heads or a tightening of our bellies or whatever, or inhibited breathing. Um, the point is that it's not the stress that does any harm. It's the tension that goes along with the stress.
Mm.
And a young man came up to me after I gave a talk at a college, and he said, "Dan, I heard you mention sometimes you do consultations with people, but I'm a poor college student. What can you tell me for $1?" And he handed me his dollar. And I gave him 6 words that could change the course of his life, a lifetime practice. And those 6 words are here and now, breathe, and relax. And breathing and relaxation are largely under our control. So can you imagine that I'm in a stressful situation? I'm going, what am I going to do about this? But at the same time, I remember to take a deep breath and I relax my body and I'm going, whoa, I'm so stressed out. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's the tension that hurts us, the inhibited breathing that goes along with the stress. So if we just can remember here and now, breathe and relax, that can be an antidote to any stressful situation, including in martial arts when you're getting attacked by multiple attackers. That's the time to breathe and relax when you're least likely to.
Interesting. Yeah. And before you get punched in the face, just breathe and
Yeah,
relax.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Move,
Um,
breathe and relax. Yeah.
I love that. I want to talk about some friends I have right now because your book was recommended to me by 2 people who are very influential in my life. The first of which, who actually gave me the book that I read his copy for the first time. His name is Daniel, Dan the Man. He's an amazing poet, and I just think the parallels between you two are so amazing. And the people who have read your book that I've met, the impact you've made is amazing. And I'm so grateful for it. And secondly, my friend Eric, who's in his early 50s, I've had the pleasure of coaching his amazing son in baseball. Um, and he asked me, or I asked him if he wanted to ask you a question because your book was so influential on him. And his question for you is, how have your views changed the most since the book first came out?
Yeah. Well, thank him for that question.
I will,
Um,
yeah.
well, my views have changed, but when I look back on my first book and the later books, um, it shows an evolution rather than any radical reversals. Uh, I was actually on the 20th anniversary edition after Peaceful Warrior, 20 years was published. I was able to make about 60 or 80 edits, small edits in the book, because it was my first book. I wasn't that skilled
Yeah.
at writing, and so I was able to improve some of the flow of the book, so to speak. Um, and I didn't write another book for 10 years after Peaceful Warrior. But then
Wow.
I met the warrior priest and the third of my mentors, and then so much exciting information I wanted to share with others. So that's what stimulated the books that followed. 18 books now, and before I've basically retired from writing from long form work. Um, so how, well, when the movie came out in 2006, I wrote a book called Wisdom of the Peaceful Warrior, which actually took the basic teachings, all of the teachings from the original book, and explained and clarified them because it was 25 years or so after the book was written. And my perspectives had changed. I understood the teachings even more. So yeah, that's my answer. My views haven't really changed, but they've evolved
Yeah.
with each mentor. And I mentioned the fourth one, who really brought me back down to earth because I was up there in the sky of mind, mysticism and abstractions and ideas, and brought me back to this moment of reality. So yes, I would have to say an evolution rather than radical change.
And it's a natural evolution. As we talked about earlier, our priorities, our goals, our values, they all change as we get older. Just as I'm sure I I really do believe in a lot of the values I have right now, and I hope that they don't completely change because I think they're rooted in a lot of purity and greatness. But I hope that they do evolve, and I know that they will. Yeah.
Yeah, they will. They will. They'll mature, they'll evolve, they'll refine, but they won't necessarily just drop away. Or I doubt that, because that's part of your foundational elements of your life. Now, there are
Exactly.
people who have a mystical experience of one kind or another, um, who have a breakthrough in consciousness, but it doesn't mean. Well, it's funny. Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy,
Hmm.
uh, or is it Leon? Anyway, um, he was known to be a complete libertine. He was a rascal, a libertine, a hedonist, and around his middle of his life, he had a radical reversal, and he became this more spiritual person. I don't know what stimulated that change, but that
Interesting.
can happen as well. Um,
Yeah, you can change.
it
Yeah.
can change, yes. Life comes at us in waves of change we can't predict or control, but we can learn to surf.
Yes. Um, okay, so lastly, my last
Yes,
question for you
sure.
is based on gratitude, on the idea of this podcast. I've recently come up with, or just like as I've developed gratitude since I was 16, started this podcast, I've realized that gratitude has many layers, and the most powerful of which comes when we start not just being grateful for material things, but start being grateful for our own qualities and the things about us that allow us to continue to make the impact we do. So, what are you most grateful for about yourself that allows you to continue to make the impact that you do?
What I'm feeling right now, the gratitude is to be speaking with a young man who has such insight, who invited me to present for your audience. May it grow over time. Um, and I'm so appreciative, because most podcasters are in their 40s or 50s, a lot of them. And it was so refreshing to see a young man like you, who is so aware, and it gives me hope for future generations.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Yeah. That really does mean a lot, and I think that we have so much reason for hope, and
We
the
do.
world is just going to see so much beautiful change. I truly believe over the next few decades. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Dan. This was an excellent conversation, made my week, and I can't wait to hear what my audience thinks about it.
Thank you, Jack. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy week to listen to Dan and I have this fantastic conversation. I'm so grateful to Dan for doing the same thing, for taking time out of his very busy schedule where so many people want to hear him talk, want to hear this advice, to get to know the man behind the way of the peaceful warrior. And out of all these requests, he chose to come on the Grateful Podcast and spend an hour with us. It's just incredible, I think, to think about so many people idolize Dan and the people that I have on this show. But really, after all, they are just humans. And I really appreciate all of you who come here every week to recognize the fact that we are just all human and we're all here trying to figure out just how to play this game of life the best that we can. Um, on that note, I will see you next week. I plan on doing a special solo episode, and yeah, I've just been so grateful recently for so much in my life, and I encourage all of you to continue to practice that and continue to be grateful for the things that are around you, even when things may feel against you. Remember what Socrates said, how we started this conversation. You can be happy without a reason. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. Stay grateful.